officially, good morning to everyone. I have already said this, but I had a great time at Atlanta. I think that the event was magnificent, and I liked the bike tour, but I also enjoyed very much, and I know that there's going to be time for feedback on the event, but I like very much the breakout sessions in which we have like small gatherings with everyone participating. I think that was great. And for today, we're gonna deal with feedback on the event, and we're gonna ask, and we thank David for volunteer to provide his insights on how he performed networking throughout the summit. And then we will touch upon some ideas for next meetings, particularly with respect to publication, Chambers Legal 500, whether it makes sense to invite people from these publications to provide some insight on how we can perform better in our submissions. With that, I leave the floor to you, Hannah.
All right, David. So David, for those of you who don't know, he is excellent at making connections and doing follow-up after these conferences. I think post-conference, he had a couple of meetings that he'll share with you about. But David, I'm gonna hand it over to you. This is sort of part 2 of our conference best practices. We heard from Koos back in July on sort of how he sets up those meetings and plans for going to conferences. And this is sort of how David does it at the conference and then follows up afterwards. So David, I am going to hand the floor over to you.
Okay, thank you. So this started with an email 2 days after the conference from Hannah. Are you available at 9 a.m. Eastern on November 16th to do best practices? I'm thinking along the lines of how you follow up and keep the conversation going after conferences. I know you are a meticulous note taker. So right off the bat, I had to call her out on there. I don't really take notes, and I kind of was saying, oh, no, I don't really, plan for these conferences and all. And then the more I thought about it, the more I said, I do have a little bit of a routine, but it's definitely more an art than a science. And I guess it starts at the end of the conference for the next conference. So what I do at the end of each conference is I go through the delegate book and I check, who I had substantial conversations with. So it's kind of interesting to see how many people did you get by to see, how many people did you actually have a nice talk with, and who did you miss, why, so just kind of take stock on that. And then when this conference starts, or the Atlanta conference, I got the delegate book, or saw the participants beforehand, and we're looking for certain things like and I'd make notes, but Hannah, these were mental notes, not physical notes. There may be a new delegate that I should talk to, or search out someone that was not at the last conference that you wanted to say hello to and catch up with, or go around to the delegates and firms that we're doing inbound and outbound work and see how that's going. Just kind of getting some ideas of when I do see someone, what to talk to them about. And so for an example, I noticed that we had a new firm being proposed for membership, the Minter Ellison Rudd Watts firm from New Zealand, and Lloyd Kavanaugh was going to be the representative. So before the meeting even started, we went to the Carter Center, as many of y'all may recall, and I made a point to seek him out in a kind of a moment when he was away from everyone else, to talk to him for about 5 minutes, just about himself, his firm, and get to know the relationship with the Minter Ellison firm and all that, and so that kind of made it easier to talk with him during the conference when it was a little more hectic. And then another thing I did before the meeting, and all of you did, was we got our and I don't know what you call this, Hannah, speed networking, speed dating, speed dialing. What is it? What do we call it?
Speed networking.
Okay, it was speed dating when we started it in Zurich back in 2009. I guess it's gone to networking now. So I looked at who I was going to be put together with, and made some notes of trying to make a point to have something come out of the conversation that may be considered follow up, even though I wasn't thinking follow up at the time. And the first speed networking that I had was with none other than Lloyd Kavanaugh. So what was great there was I'd already gotten to know him, and so we could jump right into kind of really more details about our firms and possible collaborations and all. And after that, following up with again talking with him during breaks and at dinner, and then finally, although this wasn't planned, we said goodbye at the Admirals Club in Atlanta at 6:30 a.m. Sunday morning, and both a little bleary-eyed from the conference, but it's great to get to know him. Look forward to expanding our relationship with him. The my second speed networking was my friend Vicente, and that also was that evolved because we also were sitting at the same table at the practice group breakfast with banking and finance. So Vicente and I got a great dose of each other at the meeting, and we've been great friends for many years anyway. So it was not as much learning about the firm and all that, but just kind of sharing stories and reinforcing relationships that we have with our firm. Our firm has a very active Latin American practice, and particularly a really very substantial Central America practice, and we represent the IDB in many of their financings. Vicente's on. I can't remember whether y'all actually do work with them or we're on the other side of each other, but we work together with. Vicente knows the head of that team, Vera Recksteiner, very well, and we talked about Vera and trying to do more things together. And since the conference, I've emailed Vera, and gave her a download and said, let's hope we get more work together, maybe more referrals and all. And Vicente, please follow up on that if on your side too. So that was the second speed networking. And then the third was with Diego. Let me get Diego Perez Yaza, he was with Kutacasas, and he was a first-time delegate and in their New York office. And I didn't even know they had a New York office, although later I realized Victor had been head of that office for several years before we were ever in the World Law Group. But that office it does not practice any U.S. law. It's a facilitating office for their Spanish clients that are doing business in the U.S. And so in some respects, it's a referral network just sitting right there. And so what we came out with at the end was that we would work on having Diego come to our New York office and meet some of our New York partners and just see what type of opportunities might be there. And that looks like it is going to happen early December after Thanksgiving and getting through kind of the Thanksgiving push that we got going right now. So I think something came out of each one of the speed networking deals. Then since, as Hannah alluded, since the conference, I don't know if you really call it follow-up from the conference, but it's kind of business as usual, but it's been interesting how it's hit. We've already had 2 delegations come by through our office. Yesterday, we had a group from from Davies Ward, and this actually started from Phil Johnson, emailed me and said, we have a group that's visiting clients in Dallas, and, could y'all meet with them? And on pretty short notice, we put together a breakfast meeting yesterday where there were 8 of us attending, 3 from their firm and 5 from ours, and had a very good conversation for about an hour and a half. And I think that it really helped me know more what they did in Texas, which is, they actually have clients down there, things that we have shared common clients. Some of our big clients are that cross border, also clients of theirs. So that was a very, very enlightening meeting. And the day before, on Monday, we had met with 2 real estate partners from the Gowling firm and talked with them. So we've had follow up is not as a result of the conference, but it could be, because you think more about the other people in the World Law Group. And what I want to leave as a final note, and this is an interesting, very, from a personal standpoint, very rewarding. We always, when we're at the fall conference, and I'm talking to people, we start talking about skiing. And and particularly with some of our European friends. And so after the conference, I sent an email to four of the delegates who I know and know they like to ski, and that was Per, Victor, Niels, and Haken. And believe it or not, it looks like all of us will be skiing in Colorado in January for 5 days, and trying out Beaver Creek, Vail, and I think we're going to try to get over to Aspen. And so that really, those kind of relationships really can solidify, work between the firms. And I leave at the end to say, in fact, our largest referral that we've had to date has come from Niels and Beck Braun on a trade secrets litigation that Alex handled, and it's been a very interesting deal. And we've actually got sanctions on the defendant, and where they lost their pleadings. So we've now got liability, and we're going to have quite a bit of damages on the firm in the lawsuit. And so I say to myself, is it just coincidence that, I've skied with Niels before in Colorado, and that Julie and I have had dinner with Niels and Ann and Jens and Benta in Denmark, that we got this business? Well, maybe not, but it just helps to firm up relationships between the people and the firm. So that's what I've got for the follow-up. When I first got this, thought I hadn't had any follow-up going on, and ended up with, oh yeah, it's happening all the time. That's it.
And David, I'm trying to find, you said something about, friends, the importance of the friendships in this network. I can't remember what your exact quote was, but I think that's so true, that it's not just sort of these business meetings, but things that happen after the fact, like your ski weekend with WLG colleagues, continuing.
Yeah, what I said, and I don't mind saying any time, is that I feel like I've got closer friends in the World Law Group network than I have with partners in my own firm. And I think a lot of people feel the same way. I'm not saying it's an absolute that the top 10 are World Law Group, and then you bring in but when you think of these, we look forward to, getting together, catching up, and continuing to develop these relationships. Yeah. And Hannah, we expect to see you in Beaver Creek in January.
Okay. Go ahead, Janos.
You're on mute, Janos.
Okay. So one observation that I have in relation to the speed networking. I have participated to a couple of those in the past, including the one in Atlanta. And I will tell you my personal experience and how we can capitalize on this. What we do is when we are face to face with a partner of another firm, we try to find some ways how to cooperate, what kind of common projects we may create or we may be involved. And there are some ideas exchanged there. And this happens to all the group. So but I have seen, at least in my case, and I would like to ask anybody in the committee if they have similar experience, I have not seen a response actually from the other side in any of these events. Because we have so many things to do every day, and we sometimes forget to follow up and all that stuff. I wonder, therefore, whether all these notes could be gathered by Hannah, by the Workflow Group permanent staff, in a way being categorized and see whether they could be opportunities identified that we can follow up as a group. Because if we leave it just between the firms who participated in this speed networking, I don't believe that we will have quite many satisfactory results. This is what I wanted to offer.
So Yannis, are you saying some sort of follow-up with the people that you didn't meet with in speed networking?
Not really. Assume, for instance, that in a meeting that I had with another member firm, we identified that real estate or some other, or the banking sector or wherever we may have opportunities to create a deal or pursue a deal or whatever. Now, as we cannot do it because of everyday workload that we have, perhaps this could be good ideas for WLG initiatives, for Workflow Group initiatives. Some of these ideas could be useful for everybody. And the only group the only people who could actually work on it would be really the Secretariat of the Workflow Group.
In my experience, in the speed networking, you have meetings in which you explore bilateral opportunities between, for instance, Argentina and Chile that are, because of certain conditions, are exclusive for Argentina and Chile. Or, for instance, I had a speed networking session with Philippe, and it was really interesting because we concluded that we are cooperating in the mining sectors, and we did not identify any other sector in which we may cooperate further. Why? Because Canada is like an important hub in mining, and we do have mining resources, and we share already some clients. But I agree that in other instances, we have like country opportunities that may be useful for everybody, and may or may not be raised in these speed networks. But I think we have the publications that the firms may publish in the Workflow Group with news about our countries in which we can sell these opportunities. And it could be a great idea if, while we are discussing in the speed networking sessions, something comes up that is useful for everybody to report it. I mean, to make a publication.
Mm-hmm. Ignacio, I would like to add there is a particular example. Assume for a moment, just an assumption, that I discussed with my friend on the other side of the table the possibility of putting together the Athens Chamber of Commerce and, say, the Philippine Chamber of Commerce. Because then, with this synergy, we could hope that we can increase our own business development plans. Now, this is something that could be of interest for any country. So this could be a goal, for instance, creating synergies with other organizations that would be of interest for everybody. And I believe that this could very well be identified as a good idea or whatever by the Secretariat of the group, making a kind of screening of all these ideas exchanged on the various tables of the speed networking.
it should be our initiative to raise the hand and report that to the staff. Because maybe, I mean, the 60 tables reporting at the same time to the staff, we want to make the staff crazy. But if these kind of opportunities arise, I think that we should raise it and we should flag it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good
and
idea.
maybe we need some sort of process or something for doing that, you know, saying to everyone, hey, send the staff team an email or whatever it is right after, make your notes and give people time. You know, you have 15 minutes after speed networking, send Hannah a quick email, some way that we have a process where it's fresh in their minds and we're thinking about it. You know, we're always looking for ways to improve how we do things at conferences, including, you know, the follow-up afterward. You know, so we're definitely open to ideas about how we could capture that information. You know, it's nice to say we need to leave you responsible to raise your hands and tell us, but I think people, you know, a lot of people go about their lives after the conference. They don't really think about it. They continue on with whatever that opportunity was with that individual lawyer or the other lawyers that may be involved, but don't necessarily come back to us and say, hey, here's this opportunity. They just sort of go down their path and then we hear about it, you know, however many months later in a conversation that we have with them, completely unrelated.
Maybe that's part of the instructions for the speed networking is, you know, if someone has these type of ideas, you know, the pre-instructions, maybe it's part of the announcement at the beginning of it. I don't think it's limited to just speed networking. I mean, this seems to be a prevailing concept, you know, with all the little mini initiatives that are around, you know, how do any of these get expanded, but, you know, encouraging people to roll these up to probably the BDC chair and you as the staff lead on BDC. And then that sort of gets put on the agenda. I mean, BDC, we're always looking for something to do, right? So, you know, we'd, I guess, love to have ideas like this hit, you know, Ignacio and Hannah's desks so that we can, you know, maybe have some tangible things to work on. So,
and maybe we should do it immediately after the speed networking on any other session in order to prevent people from going home and forgetting about it, and have like 5 minutes for everybody to send an email with what they think it is worth for the BDC to consider.
Yeah, or maybe it's part of the survey at the end. Is, you know, were there any takeaways from the conference that you think would be good to put on the BDC's plate?
Maybe I was going to say maybe we can leverage, you know, the web platform that we have and have something where we can type up really quick, you know, 1 or 2 line summary from what we're discussing at the same event. And it doesn't have it also doesn't have to be very long. It almost needs to be, to paraphrase David, it only needs to be a reminder, like David's taking notes on the book. By the way, I feel really smart because I take notes in my book too. But maybe that's something that we could do. Have something where we, you know, almost shoot off like a 1 or 2 liner. You know, met with David. Remember that I need to be in touch with his Washington D.C. office. Boom. Well, David's Washington D.C. office works with the IDB. Maybe all of the other LATAM firms, it behooves them to ask David to set them up with Vera and Alejandro. I mean, stuff like that.
No, and one other. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, Eduardo.
Hey, how
Hi,
are you
Eduardo.
guys?
Hey.
One other thing that I've been thinking for in the last couple of months, and it's somewhat related to this, is that we can leverage the web platform greatly. One of the things I've accidentally been doing for the past couple of years is participating a lot in bids, tender processes. And as many of you know more than me, as you progress through your professional career, you get to your peak and more to the late stages, more than lawyers, you guys become deal makers. And many times you get approached by clients to help you search the market, identify players to do joint ventures, etc., etc. And while I was participating in one of these bids, an idea passed through my head, and I said, why don't we on the World Law Group create a blog, a forum, a specific website where a specific page on the website where you can do some posts. For example, there is an 800 megawatt power plant bid that's gonna happen in 3 months' time in the Dominican Republic. Have any of the member firms have know about any clients that may be interested and so forth? And that's maybe an easier way where you start hearing rumors or you start identify potential business opportunities in your country, where you can, in one massive forum, make a post, everybody gets an update, and you say, I think I might know someone, and you can post or reach out to that person, etc., etc. So there is an opportunity. I think there is an opportunity.
Beth, what are your thoughts? Because we do have what's called the discussion boards on the website that I use very frequently if somebody's attending a conference to say, hey, this person's attending a conference, who else is attending? And it's worked really well. I mean, we've gotten at the past few conferences, anywhere between 8 and 120 people that say I'm attending, where we've managed to set up these gatherings. I wonder if we could do something like that for the KCP forum, where it all goes through the KCP forum and sort of that's, if you have a deal, and we would of course have to promote how this works and what you should be using that for. But I think the discussion boards could probably serve that purpose through the Key Contact Partners forum.
In connection with what Eduardo was saying, at Brushu, we launched, I would say like 4 years ago, a short publication that is called What's New, and that is intended just to be 3 lines stating a business opportunity. And if you need further information, you may contact some of our partners in order to learn more. And it worked perfectly well because other firms were doing like long newsletters, and we were the first to reach the market, publicize the business opportunity, that it was like a new tender, a new infra project, whatever. And all the banks and prospect clients called us for further information before any other firm was able to publish a long newsletter with all the details. I mean, if we can publish that in the web and we can do it, the only thing is that Argentina in the last 2 years had no type of this project. I think that could be useful for the entire group. I mean, if we can consolidate all the information from every country, that could be great.
Yeah, it might be beneficial because that's, first of all, we're all participating members, so we're interested in finding opportunities, obviously. And that's a way to circumvent new policies that have been being implemented by like Microsoft Exchange, Outlook, and Gmail, where they're adding additional policies to filtering spam emails. And I do know many companies that have the official market campaign programs have been having issues where many people receiving these emails, they'll automatically go to their junk email, even though if they're from known addresses. So yeah, we can definitely look into that and see how it would work in practice.
I do have one question for David. Would you say that in your view, the speed networking is like the most useful tool for business development?
What's the most useful tool?
The speed networking or the speed dating.
The speed. I think that's a really good tool. But I can see what Giannis was saying about, if you come up with something that could work more than just with the two of you, that we get it out to the rest of the group. But these one-on-one deals are very beneficial. I don't know if we need to do it every conference, but every other conference, I don't think it'd wear people out at all. And
I think that's sort of the track we've been on, right, Beth, where we've done it every. I mean, I've lost track because of the 2 years of COVID, but I think that's the plan that we had was that we'd do it once a year. But on that same note, we are looking for feedback. Are there other ways that we could do speed networking or these smaller networking opportunities throughout the conference? We don't promise anything, but we like to hear your feedback and ideas that you might have for ways that we can improve, one, the speed networking we're doing, but add other opportunities for networking. I know in Atlanta, we extended coffee breaks. They were 30 minutes. I think we've done that the last couple of conferences where we used to have 15-minute coffee breaks. They're now 30 minutes. So there's a little more time for you guys to continue one-on-one conversations. But do you guys have any ideas, or have you attended conferences where they did, any type of networking event really well that we could try to replicate at future conferences here?
One thing first of all, I echo the speed networking. I think that's a great idea. And even though we did it 2 or 3 times in a row a few years ago, and I think it was a little too much, but certainly once a year is fine. And I think it's a great thing. The one thing I don't think we did at this Atlanta conference, which I like to do in the past, is the Young Partners Lunch on Thursday. And in some ways, I'll keep going to those until I retire. So I'm not sure that the young partner aspect of it is appropriate, but in some ways, I liked the idea of sort of an arranged lunch, meaning you are assigned, you sign up for it, and maybe Thursday lunch could be, we could bring back the young partners lunch, but maybe have an old partners lunch, or have multiple lunches so that really everyone can kind of, and not 20 people, but groups of 10, and maybe pick a person in advance of that lunch to lead the lunch, because that was also an important aspect of the young partners lunch. Someone in advance was told, hey, you're going to lead it. So here's, think ahead of things to talk about. And it could be any topics, it doesn't really matter, but just some excuse for people to engage with each other. We always start those lunch by presenting folks and reminding everyone where we're from. So that would be my suggestion, is that we bring back the Thursday lunch, young partners, but even maybe extend it to 2 or 3 different lunches.
But one idea, and I'm maybe, I missed it maybe in all the information that was flying around about Atlanta, but in advance of the speed networking, if there's even a handful of sort of discussion items, there's some people who are better at it than others. And I think, a lot of people show up to these things, they're in a hurry to get out of town to get to the conference, they're rushed and whatever else, but, almost with the registration process, that's, 30, 60 days out, if there's, as part of the speed networking agenda items, if there's kind of like, here are some ideas of things for you to do ahead of time, questions to ask, etc. That may help those of us who are perhaps not as good at this as some of the others, and just give some context. So you're just not all of a sudden walking up and, starting kind of completely cold. And it also allows some of us to maybe leverage our BD groups to, help on those things. So, if some of the things are like, what are the synergies between, you and this other person? But I guess as I'm sitting here saying this, I'm also thinking about the chronology that this all shook down, in advance of the meeting. I mean, didn't the dates come out? This is kind of probably a Beth Hannah thing, because didn't the dates come out like the week before? Because we're basically finalizing all the numbers. So maybe some of the questions would have to be a little bit more generic and not be quite as conducive to pre-research. But
yeah, Beth would know, but I don't have the timeline in front of me, but I know it's at least a week before that we send out the pairings, and we have talked about sort of the final date for people to register, given that, the speed, they take me a lot of time to do, because I do sit down, I look at people's profiles, and if I can't match them up in one way, I match them up in another. But I do think, we could come up with generic questions, right? Like, I can't come up with questions for every single pairing, but definitely some generic questions that a week ahead, like, here are your pairings, take a look at their bio, take a look at their firm profile, and see where there might be synergies based on, these 5 questions, right? Which I think could be very helpful.
right. Sorry, I was not suggesting that you tailor the questions, but I'm suggesting if one of the questions was, for example, consider any cross-border work between your jurisdiction and your counterpart's jurisdiction, that's all well and good. If I go hand this off to Lisa and say, hey, can you look at something between us and, picking on Lloyd, New Zealand, that's great if we know far enough out in advance. But if we get the, pairings, the Wednesday before we all show up the next week, that might not be quite as easy to do. But still things that are out there.
Would it be helpful, even if we couldn't just, coming back to that quickly, even if we couldn't get them out, say, before 2 weeks out because of registration, we don't want to hinder those last minute registrations to a certain point. But if we said, hey, on this day, you're going to receive these, block some time with your marketing person, the week of whatever, so that you can sit down with them and go through this and know what your pairings are, to at least get an advance head up. Because we do, I think it was a week and a half prior, the Monday prior maybe. So I think it was Monday to the week prior. Would that be helpful, Joe?
Yeah, I think so. Any advance time is great.
Sorry, Ignacio, you were going to say something?
I was just adding that it's also great to look at the referral track record with that firm that you're going to meet in the speed networking in order to have that information fresh. That's always useful. I was impressed as well as the number of newcomers that we had in Atlanta, as opposed to other meetings. I don't know, it was more than 10 for sure. I don't know if it was about 20, but a lot of newcomers were in attendance. And I think that if we come back with the lunch Thursday lunch, we can also invite the newcomers in order to present themselves and try to get to know us all before the official starting of the event.
Maybe recharacterizing it, instead of the young lawyers lunch, the new delegate lunch.
Maybe, and they're not
sorry,
so
Luke, sorry, Luke, you can't go anymore. Neither you nor I.
All good.
And I think we did get some feedback from some of the folks. By the way, if you have not filled out that survey that we circulated, we would absolutely appreciate if you did. But I do think we did have some feedback about bringing back something for the first timers, the first time delegates. And they're not always necessarily, younger lawyers in their first 15 years of practice. Some of them, they may be a new KCP, or they may have business in that jurisdiction that their firm decided to send them, whatever the reason may be. But I do think we received that feedback and have talked about it on our end. Any other thoughts on Atlanta or ideas for future conferences before we move to our next item? Beth, so I think an idea is now at the end of every conference, everybody has to sit down at a table with a designated person from the BDC and have this exact conversation, and then we get guaranteed feedback.
Yeah, maybe that's the final dinner pairings is your feedback.
Okay. I think the next item we had was chambers. So I'm going to hand that over to you, Ignacio, to talk about why we put that on the agenda.
Thank you, Hannah. We're discussing with Hannah about topics that we may address in our BDC meetings. And one matter that arose is whether we would like, and that is the suggestion to discuss among ourselves, to bring someone from Chambers or bring someone from Legal 500 to discuss how they consider our submissions, what are the best practices that our firms should do and we can also share our best practices in order to improve the chances of moving up the ladder of the tiers that these publications have. At the firm, we have been trying to improve our position in certain practices, and we are dealing with that. We have some people that are exclusively focused in helping lawyers filing these submissions. And we also know that Chambers has launched some additional products that are trying to sell in order to improve the rate of response by referees, how you should structure your submission in order to be better qualified by the editorial board. And I learned that we have invited in the past, I don't know when, and it was like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, people from Chambers to discuss with ourselves this type of best practices, and we think that it might worth to invite them again and have an open discussion.
Yeah, I think we invited them. I want to say it was 2018 or 2019,
but Hannah, I think Chambers talked to us in London.
Right. So we had them in person, and then we did a virtual one that was a combination between, I think we invited lawyers to attend, but since we've had anything with Chambers, I know they were purchased by this private equity firm in maybe 2019 or 2020, Ignacio, and a lot has changed in how they do their research, since that change happened. And of course, now they have a product to sell you for everything. It's now become not just this ranking scheme, but this money-making scheme for them that I think so much has changed. It would be worthwhile having them come in to talk about some of these changes and, what changes in the process that you guys can make to improve rankings in certain areas or with certain attorneys.
Ignacio, or any of you guys, have you been approached for? They have a new product called the CMI report. Have you guys been approached with that product by any chance?
We've been approached for one product. It's called the Insight Report.
Yeah, it's CMI Insight Report.
Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we had the meeting, and we used that opportunity to get a little bit of more insight, and they even shared like a dummy report, and it definitely helps give you an idea. And but what they explain, and I can go more into this if you guys want, on how they rank you against your peers and what are the three big main criterias that they evaluate at the moment they see your submissions. So
yeah, we bought those reports for some practice areas, and it was useful to understand why you are ranked in the way you are ranked and what you should do in order to improve, and what some of your peers opined from some of our partners. That you realize that clients opine much way better than your competitors, and your competitors say, a lot of nasty things.
No, and one thing that we've been told by actual Chambers reporters in the last couple of years is that an issue that they typically tend to have with Latin America is that for some reason Latin American has a culture that in order for one to succeed, you need to destroy the other person. And that is the wrong mentality to have. And unfortunately, what typically tends to happen is that when they're conducting the peer research, they end up receiving very nasty comments on other member firms. Luis actually has a really funny story when about 2 years ago the researcher told him, like, oh my god, we really like to talk to you because you always recommend other partners from other firms that should be ranked. That never happens in your country. So it's very sad that tends to happen, but it is true. Other firms, for some reason, typically speak very nasty things about you.
Yeah, that's been the experience in Argentina as well. And then they have another product that is the follow-up of referees. We haven't used that tool, not yet. We're gonna start using next year. But if you select a referee that has been already been reached in the last 6 or 3 months, they don't approach them for the next, I don't know, 3 months, and that's an issue for being sure whether your referee has been contacted and whether your referee provided feedback. So it occurred to me, and discussing with Hannah, that these doubts that I have could be, I mean, similar to the doubts and questions or concerns that you may have within your own law firm, and you may have other concerns with respect to how these publications work, and it could be worth to have this meeting with Chambers or Legal 500 or any other publication that you may want to have some insight.
I think it would be very valuable.
I think it would be very valuable, and in fact, it would be very helpful because in the past year and a half specifically, we've had a lot. We have a lot of instances where during RFPs and or any other process where the client has said, "Oh, we are checking Chambers," and we've actually gotten rejected. Our firm is a spinoff. So since the first day, we've been working really, really hard in Chambers to get recognized for our historical practice. And an issue we encountered in the early days was that Chambers specifically and IFLR told us, I know you guys are doing the same quality of work. I know you guys have really good clients, but unfortunately, one of our criteria is your record over time. So we need to give you a couple of years to actually see if you can maintain that practice. At the beginning, we said, okay, we understand it. Thankfully, both Chambers and Legal 500 have been really good with us, especially with the lawyer aspects, and slowly but surely we're rising over the ranks on the firm side. But we didn't worry because many of the clients at the end of the days are being referred. But during the RFP process, and this is something that didn't used to happen before, we have been rejected because they said, "Oh, your budget was okay. You have great experience. You have great lawyers, but we decided to do one, work with a previous firm, or two, we decided to go with someone that was higher ranked in Chambers." It's something you typically don't like to hear, but any sort of insight you can get in with people working at Chambers will definitely help to obviously get higher ranked.
Thank you, Eduardo. Well, anybody else has any feedback to provide? So I think we can move ahead and try to set up a meeting with. I don't know whether there is any other item in the agenda. I think it's a general call for ideas. But let me check.
Yep, I think just a general call for ideas for 2023. And also, do we want to have a December meeting? I don't think we'll get Chambers lined up by then, but.
So, any ideas for 2023 that you would like to explore within the BDC on our monthly meetings? We are also thinking with Hannah in setting up a joint meeting with the Leaders Forum on some matters, but we're still developing the idea and whether that is feasible to address matters
This is a very good idea, Ignacio. I believe that Leaders Forum, together with the BDC, would be a great opportunity.
Yeah, and have someone to provide
Except,
an introduction on a certain matter and then trigger discussion. That would be the general approach. But we're still on developing that idea and elaborating on the idea.
yes, but I would like to make a remark in relation to the Leaders Forum. And this goes for you also, Hannah. The last time that we had the Leaders Forum, we had representatives of various firms getting in the room. And I do not believe that all of them were their firm's leaders. When we are talking, the initial idea behind leadership was that the actual contact partners would participate there, especially if they were the managing partners or the leaders in their own firms. Then the leadership forum makes sense. If other persons from any firm participate, you never have a result, or at least the result you want to achieve, and form a strategic thinking and a strategic plan that would actually reflect the actual intentions of the firm. So I believe that we have to go back to the real concept of leadership forum. I insist on this point because it is extremely important, and only then it would make real sense.
Yeah, I think that idea of the leaders forum, and I agree with you, is for I mean, managing partners or practice leaders. Am I correct, Hannah?
Yes.
Beth would be able to talk more on that.
Yes, I think when we first started it, it was people, managing partners and executive committees of member firms. Phil did expand that to cover practice leaders. There may be a couple of other things I can't recall in the description. I certainly noticed in Lisbon, we had a much larger crowd than usual, some of whom were probably questionable as far as their leadership roles in their firms. Having said that, you know, we do put all the information out there, what the intention is. A lot of our key contact partners are leaders at their firms. That's how they end up in that KCP role. So we do have many who, you know, whether they're leaders of their practice group, there are a whole bunch of those, and current, former managing partners, current executive committee members, et cetera. So I think it is inherently a large group amongst a lot of our attendees and key contact partners. But it's something we're definitely, actually, Tori and I just discussed that yesterday, how we may be able to limit that further through technology, people being able to register for those things. And we've been going through, there's a member firm leaders meeting in our at-large program in a couple of weeks. And we've been going through the people that are registering and reaching out to some of those that might not fit. So I think, Janos, just to say that point is taken, and we're already taking some measures to address that.
It is very sensitive to exclude anybody that has registered because you think that it doesn't fit there.
Exactly.
Yes, because otherwise I could take the hat of a leader and get into the meeting and I am a leader. I mean, you know, it doesn't make any sense to me.
I mean, it's more a matter of self-restraint, you know, if you're not a leader, you shouldn't attend.
Maybe there's a way to do it that is diplomatic, like getting people to introduce themselves and explain their leadership roles before the meeting, so that you can help people to self-select.
Yeah.
A little bit. It can help a little bit.
One other way could be, since we're finishing the year, is that a a wide, broad email be sent to all firms just to re-verify or recheck the roles that have been registered in the World Law Group? Who are the business developers? Who are the marketing team members, managing partners, etc., etc.? Just to refresh who are the key contacts and stuff like that. That could be a way to maybe flush it out.
Or
And in that forum,
invitation.
have descriptions, specific descriptions on who are the people that fit each criteria.
Actually, it could be by invitation. If we have the participants list in a conference, the Secretariat of the World Law Group could go by invitation and invite those that they believe that they represent their firms.
Janos, on the other hand, I also think that, you know, we also have to think what Phil was trying to accomplish in the group when he opened it up, right? This is also a very big thing. I think, like, for us to have this discussion is good, but I think that this is a discussion that is better had with Phil and the guys from Davies, right? But with Phil. Which is not to say that the ideas are not good or that we shouldn't go on. But the other thing that I was thinking is that if the other way to do it is if you have someone who, like Beth was saying, is suspect, then maybe you ask that person to invite their managing partner to participate virtually and make it a hybrid session and have a Zoom set up in the room where we're having the meeting, and make sure that they will participate. So instead of restricting, you open it up and you make sure that the right people are in.
Vicente, restrictions are not always bad.
I'm not saying that they're bad.
Very good.
No, I love restrictions.
I love restrictions too.
Except in my diet. In everything else, they are excellent. I agree.
Well, I think one that's, you know, having a conversation with Phil, and two, it's not to say that there may not be a place at certain meetings that the member forum leaders hold where others could be involved, and maybe it's a different approach in terms of, okay, this meeting is just for, you know, these are the things that we're talking about. Send your profile in so that we know what your role is within the firm to be part of this conversation. I think, you know, there's a fine line to walk for us to be inclusive or exclusive in something. So, you know, I know Beth works closely with Phil on that forum, and we'll take that conversation back to him, Janos. I'm aware that we are at 8:03. Go ahead, Vicente.
I have one last idea, and I promise not to take more than 1 minute of anyone's time. You know, I am very aware that we always analyze the referral information, but maybe an idea for the BDC for 2023 is, you know, to the extent someone has seen patterns or identified patterns in the mutual referrals from the referral information, maybe we can analyze some of those in these meetings and see if there are things that we have to explore more. Whether there are referrals that are repetitive in, for example, industry sectors, like, for example, Ignacio, what you identified between your firm and the Davies firm in mining, stuff like that. And maybe that's something that we can discuss here so that it becomes, you know, to the extent it can become common knowledge, that people understand some of the relationships and what some of the people and firms are doing between each other, so that for example, I can figure out, for example, you know, it behooves me to get my Honduras and Nicaraguan partners who are from countries that have mining resources in touch with the Davies people. And, you know, maybe instead of working with the other Seven Sisters firms from Canada, maybe they can target together other clients in the mining industry, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Vicente. And I think that somehow we tried to do that in our breakout session in Atlanta. We didn't. I think that we ran out of time. We had that breakdown of information on referrals. We can share it within the BDC meeting and try to discuss. And these type of ideas may arise when we look at our patterns of referrals and exchanges between regions. Yeah.
All right. Any other last comments before we close? Ignacio, you know, the one thing I did want to chat was the December meeting, which, let me just pull up my calendar, is currently on the calendar for December 14th.
I mean, I would love to have the meeting, but I also recognize that it's mid-December, near what the chaos that December are, at least in Latin America, and with the World Cup ongoing.
Well, then maybe since most of the folks that attend are Americans, we do it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon so we can do it over a cocktail. Right? I think it was all.
We will be
all
either
America's
congratulating
best
Ignacio or commiserating with Ignacio.
Yeah.
There is a lot of people having their fingers crossed for Argentina right now. So Ignacio.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't want to be the favorite team in the World Cup.
It is time, Ignacio. It is time.
Could be. Let's see. Yeah, but it's true. By December 14, I mean, we would have been in the finals or not. So we may meet again in January if you agree. But
if anybody wants to get on Zoom and commiserate or celebrate, let me know. I'm happy to set that up.
Okay, that's great. Are we gonna have like an online meeting to close the year? Not with the BDC, but I mean in general for the whole World Group. We had it last year.
We have the at large, which is taking place the first week of December.
Yeah.
It would have been in the Fortnite focus. There was a separate email going out about it, but we've got a lot going on. Speed networking, cannabis group meeting, a couple of webinars. Member from leaders have a meeting then, and then I think we have another meeting with marketing folks. I think Alex is speaking at something, David, on.
Yeah, he's speaking on networking.
Networking, okay.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot going on, and you can find all of those on the website and sign up. It's one sign up for everything that we have internally. You sign up and you can click all of the events that you want to attend. And then separately, we have 2 webinars, one on NFTs and brands in the metaverse, and the other one on the governance aspect of ESG.